a few things about the Cropland Grain Sorghum program, and I always like to remind everybody that a few years ago when we started this was kind of our platform to start from when we went out and started selecting genetics. So the scope of this project was to be very tough, reliable, reduce risk, have some very stable genetics at the Cropland brand. The target areas when we opened this all up were right down the heart of Sorghum Alley, I'm going to call it. So South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas was our major focus when we first introduced all the varieties. And we've started to gravitate a little bit out of that pocket. We've gotten some earlier varieties that now we can stretch into North Dakota. I know we had a gentleman plant grain sorghum along the lake in Wisconsin this year, and so we've got things scattered all over the place and continuing to build, try to improve, get us stable yield. Now, the other part about this, we want to try to get some consistent yields. There's Tanner, buddy. Consistent yields across this whole spectrum. Guys, we've all been in this agronomy business long enough that if we just simply chase racehorses all day long, we're going to have some issues at some point, right? So we wanted to try to get you guys consistency across these varieties. We're going to win some plots. We're not going to win all the plots. We might not finish top half in some of these plots, but we're going to try to provide really good, stable varieties for everybody to take and go forward with. So that was a little bit of our platform. I wanted to give you some more background on that before we got started, that is where we're trying to build this whole thing from. Now, before we get into, I've got some special guests on here today from Warner Seeds, but before we get into that, I want to tell everybody on here, again, thank you. This is your moment where you can take yourself off mute and answer a question, if you would, please. I'm going to ask, what happened to the planted acres of grain sorghum in the United States in 2025? Did they go up or go down? Anybody have an answer for me there?
I think they were up in 2025.
Across the U.S. Tanner, what's the market tell us in the U.S. were the acres up or down in 25?
My understanding was decently down, but I'm the sales guy that once I sold it, I didn't pay as much attention. So,
Payne, how about you? What's the market tell you from a breeder standpoint?
I think they were a little down just from.
I think the statistics, you're right, guys. I think if we were to go poll people, I think they were actually off somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000 acres. Does that sound about right across the U.S.?
That's what I'd heard.
What I want to tell everybody on this call, again, is congratulations. Thank you. In a down market across the whole U.S. So, Tom, thanks for answering that question. I think you had some pockets that were probably up where you were at. That's fantastic. We shipped a lot of seed early as well with anticipation that the market would be flat or up just a little bit, and then we took a little bit of a whack on basis. That 80-cent turnaround on basis really hurt the sorghum market from a grain sorghum standpoint. The cool thing for you guys at the Cropland brand in Winfield is that we probably grew 20% in a market that was down. So thank you very much for that. And I'm going to just stop right there with that comment and say we have a couple guests on the call here today. We have Payne and Tanner. Tanner, I'm going to stop share because I have a slide that talks about you all, and I know you have a couple specific Warner slides that you'd like to share and introduce what's going on, why you gentlemen are on here, and what exciting news we have for everybody.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for the opportunity to hop on. I know there's going to be some people on the call that I've had the opportunity to meet over the years. There's a decent number too that I don't know. So I'll start off by introducing myself. So Jeff said, my name is Tanner Antonick. I am the commercial lead here at Warner Seeds. I've been here about 3 years, but I've been in the sorghum industry for a little over 10. So I've had the opportunity to launch some different technologies with different suppliers. been able to work on the branded side of the business as well as the licensing side. And the reason I'm here at Warner Seeds is I had the opportunity to come over and re-envision and rework and reemphasize the genetic licensing model and making sure that Warner Seeds can be a player in the industry while doing it from a supplier side instead of a branded side. So for those of you that maybe haven't seen Warner Seeds, the company facing forward, we had a small little regional brand, but for the most part, our go-to-market strategy is to create and breed the best genetics in the industry and try to find a way to make sure that we're supporting Croplan and Armor products and trying to work to get those genetics out through that model. In the past, Warner Seeds has had that little regional brand, but we've always wanted to be a genetic supplier. And so what I would tell people if they ever asked, and I've told Jeff this before, is Warner Seeds and our team, the whole goal is to be the best in the industry from the field to the bag. If we can make sure the R&D side is the best genetics, our production team is well equipped to have good genetic and trait purity, and then we're really good at processing it, that's a win for us. It's after it's in the bag, that's when we need your help. And we look for people and companies to partner with that can maintain and place those products in a situation to succeed. So that's where Jeff and I have had a great relationship, is where are the gaps in your portfolio? What things do you need? Let's breed for that, and then use your expertise in the field to have a good grower interaction and have good grower experiences with those products. So then it's, what's the elephant in the room here? Why is Warner Seeds on this call? Well, this is a DT call. And as some of you probably heard, back in June, S&W ceased all operational activities. And S&W was the owner of the Double Team Cropping Solutions trait, or DT sorghum. In June, after that period of time, Warner Seeds had the opportunity to do some exploratory work on the purchase. And at the end of the day, we determined that what an amazing opportunity to combine what both companies do best. So Warner Seeds was mainly a forage genetic company, really good from the field to the bag. S&W was a grain sorghum company, primarily. The forages had begun to be a reduced emphasis. And so it just was a really good marriage of portfolios. And so through the process and a little bit of luck and the ability to purchase, as of September, Warner Seeds wholly owns the sorghum assets from S&W Seed Company. So, Jeff, do you have any comments as far as that?
No, I think that's great. Are you planning to put okay, slide? There you go. Yeah. I just want to make sure. No, that's guys. Yeah, there's a reason they're on here today. We have a great relationship with these guys. We work lockstep with them. I don't know, Tanner. There's days where we probably talk 3 times a day, and then there'll be a week in between where we both get busy on another project. So we have a pretty open line of communication between Croplan and Warner on a large number of things. One thing being DT, and the DT2s, and you know, I'm gonna just let you go through here, and then if there's something else I need to tag in, I think that's great. Now that you got your slide up there, go for it, guys.
Perfect. Yeah. So really, what does that mean? And what I wanted to comment on is when we say sorghum asset, S&W had their hands in a lot of stuff. They were in the alfalfa business. They had some biofuel stuff going on. So what Warner Seeds was able to purchase was the sorghum assets from that company. That includes all germplasm. That's the conventional grains and forages that have been known in the industry for a while. That's the traded parent lines that include the DT and the PF parent lines. The big one, and I'll let Payne talk about it here in a second, is as far as assets, the molecular lab is probably the biggest home run that we could have had the opportunity to work with, just because it is such a key component of that quality control measure moving forward. And then finally, and the purpose for this call today is the IP. So that IP being the DT trait, the PF trait, and there's actually some other future traits in that greenhouse, in Payne's lab, some things that are going to be exciting for all of us to test and work with in the future. We also gained the control over. So moving forward, this is not only really exciting for us, but it's exciting for this group on this call today, because the Winfield groups and Croplan and Armor, we have a unique relationship where there's a peek behind the curtain. Jeff gets to come see some things in their infancy stage. So all in all, this is a win for both parties here, and we're really excited about the future of the IP, of the germplasm, and where it's going to take us. So there's one thing I wanted to highlight today, because I'm going to let Payne talk over the actual trait and the hybrids. But what is the big change? I mentioned being good from the field to the bag is we want to make sure that we are providing the best resources possible, starting with R&D. So traditionally, sorghum companies have one, primary breeder. So Raghu Sripathi, he's on the far left there. He came with me 3 years ago. He's a fantastic breeder, loves forages. And so we've had a lot of innovation there. But after this purchase, we went and met with Payne and we're able to convince Payne that he needed to come with us too. And so Payne's joined and brings a lot of experience. And then where Payne specializes in random molecular lab and brings in traits, we're going to see a lot of trait integration happening. So having, in my mind, two of the best breeders in the industry, this dynamic duo, and then partnering up with Dr. Wayne Shin, the molecular lab lead, I think what I really want to communicate is the possibilities are endless here for innovation in the short and long term. So this is exciting to see what's going to happen and what it's going to do directly to those to the CROPLAN products and to the Armor products, because I think we're going to see a lot of turnover in the next 2 to 4 years. Still need to do it in a organic manner, but there's going to be a lot of really new, unique things coming out with an emphasis starting with R&D.
Perfect. Could you mention quickly, and for anybody that's on this call already has probably took a gander at some of the pricing structure, and would it be out of bounds to talk a little bit about what you've done with the DT trait and what that pricing looks like, please, Tanner, so everybody can understand that there was some homework done on day one that was fantastic.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we've been working with Payne prior to this too, because we were interested. Is there a way to partner up and integrate some of these technologies into our germplasm? And so we've been doing some analysis before this purchase even took place. And really what we saw, especially when it came to the DT technology, is there needed to be a 2 in front of that retail number. As soon as you went past $300 a bag, we really saw growers were more having to justify why they had to buy the DT technology instead of why, they'd be silly not to. So we wanted to make it to where it was more price competitive, bringing the retail price back down to where it needed to be, but also making sure that everybody's able to make a bit of money too. That's at the end of the day, that's an important part for all of us. So we went ahead and we re-envisioned that price, and we think it's going to be very fair moving forward. And it allows us to have some growth as well as we develop new genetics. You'll notice in the future, we were stacking other traits, disease tolerances, aphid tolerance, all these things into these new products. And it's going to allow us to keep the price point competitive where we're not being priced out of the market, especially where this is a unique year. When not every year we're going to have 100 bushel yields across Western Kansas. We have to be able to price this for those 50 and 60 bushel years. And that's really important to us. And we want to make sure we right size that business.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Mr. Payne Burks.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Jeff, for allowing me to be on the call. A little history. I started out 15 or 16 years. I've been in the sorghum industry. Started working with Chromatin, bought by S&W, and now bought by Warner. When I came over as a breeder in the sorghum industry, one thing really lacked to me was just the lack of technology in the crop. Really wanting to, enhance what sorghum does in the field as corn and cotton or any other of the high commodity crops do. We want to make it easy to use. We want to put technology in the backgrounds that hopefully gets away from the red-headed stepchild theme to it, but also putting technology, making it easy in the field, and then continually enhancing the innovation within the crop. So we started in 2017 looking at what traits would allow farmers to essentially be able to, have grow an easier crop, or two, just what kind of herbicides would work. And we settled on a grass herbicide. So, we have the molecular lab. We found a quizalofop tolerant mutation through tissue culture. Once we found it, we were able to integrate that into our germplasm pretty quickly. So, having the molecular lab is so important, because traditional breeding programs might take 8 to 10 years, and we were able to integrate the trait within 18 months into the backgrounds of solid parent lines. A lot of it went into product positioning too, of what type of products does a herbicide trait need to be present in, and we really settled in the earlier maturity areas. I feel like that's where the germplasm is strongest, that we have with Warner now, is just early germplasm. So we integrated into our early parent lines, and by 2021 we had pretty substantial commercial sales, with pretty good growth from 22 to 24. So pretty exciting to see the acceptance of a technology. With that came new pipelines. So, we didn't stop there. So, we had a really nice conventional pipeline moving forward in the R&D program. And we were taking all of our elite germplasm or parents out, and we were converting those to DT. And so, we were running today, we have about 1,000 DT2 hybrids, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that are in our pipeline to be selected for the future. What we expect with any pipeline, when you first release a trait or a hybrid, you set the standard, but we're looking for the 3 to 5% yield increases year over year, and we're finding it. We found that the trait, there's no yield drag associated with the trait, but we have to have it in the right backgrounds and the right maturities to go into the field. When we first launched, we had 3 products, and we added another one in 22. One of the first products is an early maturity, and Jeff, it's the
5730.
5730 DT.
Yep.
That product really has really good broad adaptation. We see it late planted in the panhandle of Texas after cotton acres that have sandburrs, and it's made its way all the way into South Dakota. So we were looking for the products that have really good adaptation across geographies. We added some other products that were medium early and medium maturities that held its own as well. Our goal with these products when we began was to try to find consistent products, consistent yielders. Jeff mentioned earlier, which I completely agree with, is the barn burner products that might have one really good year and 2 bad years. We're looking for the consistent products, especially to put the trait and improve those every year from a yield standpoint.
So I threw up a screen share again, just for us to use as a little bit of a platform again. And if you wouldn't mind, explain to these guys what the difference between go talk about how the trait purity was in the DT1 versus what you're coming through with DT2, and how that impacts what we do as agronomists and agronomy people.
Absolutely. So the DT trait is a dominant trait, meaning you only have to have the trait present in one parent to for the hybrid itself to present the trait. So our first round of DTs were all in the male side. What we found is trait purities were lower just from some production practices in the field. There's a lot of foreign pollen that floats around the panhandle of Texas. And so we were, in the 90 to 95% purity range over years. When we integrated the trait into the female side, we came out with another hybrid. The purities were much higher because the trait was in the female. And so you were spraying the female field and getting rid of off types if they were present. And so purities jumped up to 98 to 99% with that hybrid. As we worked with the trait, we discovered that, yes, it is a dominant trait, meaning it has to be in one parent, but it is also additive too. So when it is in both parents, the tolerance to the herbicide is much stronger. So when the first DT hybrids that are currently being sold, they have on the label is 11-inch spray height that you have to abide by to avoid crop response. Not saying that crop response is going to happen if you spray before 11 inches, but in certain scenarios of cloudy weather, humidity, it can definitely instigate crop response. With DT2s, with the trait in both parents, that crop response factor almost became non-existent. We were testing in the worst of the worst areas in Victoria, Texas, where it's hot and humid, cloudy weather, rains all the time. What we saw, there was zero crop response. So now the label is being switched with the DT2s, so you can spray at a 4-inch minimum spray height. And what that means is if your metolachlor runs out, if it's not activated and you have a flush of sandburrs late and your grain sorghum's not very tall, now you can go in and rescue your crop. And so we're really excited because that just opens up the window, your spray window. It's very similar to how Roundup Ready and Roundup Ready 2 worked in terms of spray heights. So we were very excited. Also with bringing DT2s into the pipeline, they're coming with more additive traits like sugarcane aphid tolerance in the background as well. And so that's where the pipeline is moving. The DTs have been in the market for 4 or 5 years now. They've done a good job in certain geographies, but we know as a germplasm supplier that we have lots of improvements to do too, just from the genetic side, and that's where we're currently working. And we do expect genetic purities in all the DT2s to be 100%. In a production setting, you're able to spray the field, and any volunteer sorghum that may exist in the field will die.
So I think that's a big thing to remember, folks, is that anybody starts complaining about any weird outcrosses and those kind of things, it's going to be I'm going to put one finger in one ear and kind of squint with the other eye and go, don't talk about that, because literally they can go out there and clean up anything that's not tolerant to that trait from a grass standpoint. So this shad or cane Johnson grass thing should not be much of a discussion from anybody at that point in the background of saying, hey, you sold us contaminated stuff. It should be pretty darn good. So anything else on that trait integration stuff, Payne?
So, with the full molecular lab, we're integrating it into all of our elite backgrounds now. We should have a full portfolio of products to supply the market that has pretty wide adaptation from, in the future from South Texas to Central Kansas back to South Dakota, kind of in the breadbasket of the market.
I could throw one thing on there, Jeff.
Please.
When we look to the future on grains, I think DT2 is going to be a really good step, but don't be afraid if in the future we see just regular DT, especially on forages. It always is easier to develop males. So that's why we saw a lot of the first gen DT grains be on the male side. And so we saw that lack of trait purity. Moving forward, we may have some just regular DTs, but it's on the female side. So our trait purities, 100%. And so it'll allow us to add a lot of new forages quickly. So I would just say is we're still going to offer regular DT and DT2. It's just instead of having on the male side only on the heterozygous, it'll be on the female side, just so we have better safety when we're out there applying it, not having plant death.
Fantastic. Well, so before we get any deeper into the varieties, I just want to let everybody know on here too, and we'll have a little more of this discussion when we do our forage program next week. Today we're doing grains only, but with the work at Warner, I want to let you know that in the last couple of years we would we would take seed from S&W and reclean it and get some different things in better shape for you all. And Werner was part of that process in the last year or so. So I don't know if any of you recall some of the different things that S&W had trouble with as far as processing, packaging, maybe some contaminated units in those pieces. I am so tickled to death that we have these guys in charge of quality control now, and we'll get that continue for us. They're going to continue to keep that cleaned up because they did our double team bagging for us last year, and things went fantastic as far as I think. If anybody has any different, hold your tongue for right now. I don't want to hear it today. But as far as like customer acceptance and, not having chunks and bad stuff in the bag. So that's one thing I want to say that these guys have been fantastic with. And a little bit deeper to this conversation about what we're doing together. And so obviously this DT thing, we're fully embedded there. We've been selling it for multiple years ourselves at the CROPLAN brand. But I want to let anybody know that we also have our forages nursery is at Werner right now, and they are assisting us with the assistance of Ragu to bring our forage system forward as well. So pretty nice to have a group of guys like that to work with on our forage program. Now, we're going to switch gears back to this grain sorghum thing and talk about the tools in the toolbox. Again, folks, we sell DT herbicide tolerant products. We also sell the iGrowth system. Now, I don't want us amongst ourselves to have those conversations, us against them, DT versus iGrowth. I still want everybody to understand that probably the biggest competitor is the non-use acre, where herbicide tolerant product could help enhance that grower satisfaction growing grain sorghum, protect the yields. I think the interesting thing, folks, is that that bag of grain sorghum has unlimited yield potential. It's everything that happens once we pull that zipper strip off the top of that bag that reduces the yield of that product. So on some acres, we do need some good grass control and or risk assurance that if our pre-emerge herbicide doesn't hold, we have to have that to get grain yield out of those crops. So just utilize the tools in the toolbox. We're going to talk about some product now, and I will send out these tech sheets. I basically did a screenshot of the application use tech sheet information. This would have been for the DT1 scenario. The rates should not change, as just herbicide application timing, but we will get these sent out and in your hands so you have them at your retail locations and for anybody to drop off at retail. So just as a reminder, these tools in our toolbox give us some great opportunities. So what I really want to do now is to break into the double team hybrids while we have these two gentlemen on the phone with us on this call, because I see a few acres. You guys as Winfield retail sellers and support staff from the CropLand Winfield system, you guys see some different things. These gentlemen, you get Payne, he's been in the background actually doing the breeding and working with these things. So I want to talk a little bit about, we're going to go chronological order on maturity right now, talk about the benefits and the placement that we see on these products. So Tanner and Payne, don't be afraid to jump in here. But one of the great things that I want to point out is that for anybody in the South that might be able to use as a double crop, late planted, those type scenarios where you really need that sorghum aphid tolerance, this is one of those products that's going to bring you some really good aphid tolerance along with the DT2 platform. So from a positioning and placement strategy, guys, I think it's fairly obvious. Early maturity, roughly 56 days, give or take, to mid-bloom, and we go from there. So what do you think you've seen as the best attributes of this early product other than just early sugarcane aphid tolerance?
So one of the pieces to this hybrid is it's a yield improvement for sure, just from a genetic standpoint through the pipeline. So that's really exciting when we want to introduce a newer version of the technology, plus get yield improvements from the genetic side. This hybrid is also a little bit shorter stature than the 5730. This product 5730 has the tendency to elongate under cooler nights. This product is really consistent in maintaining its height under different environments. This hybrid also, we tested this on some really heavy charcoal rot ground. We've had really good incidences of charcoal rot in Lubbock, where it's really wet early and it gets hot and dry in sandy soil with lots of compaction, and then wet later, which is a pretty good storm for charcoal rot. This hybrid stands really well and has really good tolerance to charcoal rot as well. So what I see from an early maturity hybrid, this has all the same attributes as the 5730 in terms of where it can go, what it can do. But what we see is a yield improvement and just more consistency across environments. And so that's why we're really excited about this hybrid. And with any early hybrid, that this is where I like to focus the bread and butter of our breeding program is earlies to mediums, just because of the flexibility of what you can do with hybrids of this maturity. Hybrids like this, you can drill them in 10-inch rows, and you can do a multitude of things to increase yield with earlier products.
I would add, Payne brought up it, elongates out, it gets taller. So this maintains a shorter height. The other thing is those cool nights can also cause the 5730 to extend its maturity a little bit. So you could see it range from a 55 to a 60 day. This is a much more stable 55 to 56 days. So in those higher elevations, eastern Colorado or even up into South Dakota, long term, this may be a better fit for some customers that complained about the 5730 maintaining its maturity. So I think in terms of height and maturity, this thing 57.6 or 56.14 is going to be a little more stable for you. So it'd be a good companion product to throw out this year on the 5730 guys to see if this fixes some of those possible issues they saw.
Well, I really like the way Tanner mentioned that a companion product. So we're going to talk shortly about supply before everybody gets their panties in a bunch and heads to the computer and try to order some. This is going to be a little bit of a more on a limited supply introduction look. We have some people that are really good with 5730. We have some pockets this is going to work really well, but let's just not, I don't want to have to go into an allocation mode, folks. So be nice, play nice with your friends. We're going to be a little bit more limited supply on the newer releases based on what we've decided to do as a company as well. So just keep that in mind. Now, Payne, I did have a slide talking about some of the other products in the industry and the win rates of these DT2s, and 5614 would basically be the comparison in here. So as you compare to some of these other varieties, it's talking about the win rate. And I wanted to give you guys a little snippet on data. We don't have an overabundance this year yet back. We have some stuff placed in multiple university trials that the reporting's not been done yet. So we're going to have some data today, but not what we will have come January. And I'll send out new slides with all the new updated data in there. But just rest assured, folks, some of the current varieties in that early spectrum between, I would say the first 5 varieties in there, we see quite a little bit too. And your win rate's pretty good. It's going to be a little bit circumstantial, I'm guessing, on which acre they get placed on. But as an earlier variety than everything on that list, it's holding its own very, very well.
Yeah, and Jeff, this data was based on dry land to favorable dry land scenarios. So, you're in between a 50 to 110 bushel environment is what all this data is based on.
That's good to understand as well, that it's not all irrigated 150 bushel type ground. So thank you for pulling that out. All right, folks. So 5730, we've been in this game for a number of years now. It's been doing a really good job for us. I continue to get favorable reports from the country and even pockets. I'm going to just say we've had some South Dakota reports come in. The guys are just tickled to death too at that far north saying, hey, we did dryland grain sorghum, South Dakota 2025, cutting 80, 90 bushel, little natural rainfall, limited fertility, and just tickled to death with it. So I hope you all are having those same. Anybody have any yield reports they want to throw out, or you guys, this is your call too. So if anybody from the field wants to unmute themselves and have a word to say, go for it. Tom, I see you got something.
Yeah, one of my sellers who's on the call here from Oklahoma has a customer that is entering his 5730 into the grain sorghum yield contest, National Grain Sorghum Producers Yield Contest. And I've had multiple positive responses about the yields this year with 5730.
That's great. And that's a testament for the fact that the germplasm behind the screen is good. It's about placement and situational awareness of where it's at. I mean, we've got great genetics in this lineup, so folks, that's good to hear. But again, it's going to be a tough, scrappy variety that handles the heat. pH changes, Payne and Tanner, you guys, do you see much difference in many of these varieties when we get to like IDC soils and those pieces?
Yeah. So, one great thing about this hybrid, and as it's got really good chilling tolerance in the female side. So this hybrid, you're able to plant it when soil temps are 53, 54, as opposed to waiting to 60. So you're getting a little bit more window of planting. So that's really exciting about this hybrid. It's been absolutely consistent through dryland and favorable dryland areas. It's been a really exciting product to watch take off. And thank you, Thomas, for saying what you did. That's from a breeder standpoint. It's always nice to hear that products are helping people throughout the industry. So from a pH standpoint, it just depends on how high the pH is. I mean, there's always pockets when you get into eastern Colorado and parts of the panhandle of Oklahoma where pH is extremely high. So there will be pockets. I wouldn't say it's tolerant to extremely high pHs. But if you're approaching the high sevens and low eights, I mean, this should be a decent product. Good.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody heard 57 degrees on here just a little bit ago. I'm sure that's what you heard. Because they're going to push it anyway. They'll end up planting at 48 now. Okay, great. 5730, guys. So we talked about supply. 5614 is going to be limited. 5730, eat all you can eat. We're not going to have any supply limitations on that thing. So make sure you get your orders in. We probably have some that's going to be bagged shortly. So go ahead and get that thing moving. 6145. Again, for folks that have been using this thing, I think this is probably more stress tolerant than we let you all realize up front. And Payne, if you had to position this thing, where do you guys, from a breeder standpoint, where's the best place you guys see for this this medium early type product?
Yeah, it's a medium early product across favorable drylands. This product is really good. It really has a yield boost if you put the inputs to it as well. So we've seen it go have some really high yields in southwestern Kansas under full irrigation from a medium early product. But really positioning it from drylands, favorable drylands. It's done really well. I've seen several fields of it in South Dakota, and it's worked really well there as well.
So I think that's something to remember. You can put it on some pretty nasty dry land, but if you have some groceries to give it, or you get some good rainfall and you can go side dress some things, you can bump that thing and have a nice little tick on yield. Now I've got this is a little bit. I've got a little regression line from some comparisons that we did And this is some data with our 6111. And the reason I put this in here is to show that on different farms, depending on what your scenario is, they can be some really good companion products as well. And what this shows you is that in the worst of the worst lower yield environment, 6111 probably going to have a slight advantage. But as you start getting a little bit better soil and a little bit better yield potential, the 6145 shows what you said there. You get a little better groceries, a little better soil, better yield environment up in that 9,000 pound range, and it's gonna show that high end yield potential. I hope that makes sense to everybody, but neat companion
Jeff,
product on the early side.
agree. And Jeff, what I think this product does is it allows you to plant earlier, and if you have the ability to put high inputs to it to get some really good yield out of it and get it out of the field early as well to go back with another crop.
Absolutely. Tanner, you see anything crazy out of 6145?
No, I guess I'll be negative on this. I would say this is an area, looking at Payne's material, that this is a product that we probably will have a cool replacement for sooner rather than later. This out of the products, I do agree it had really good top end yield potential, and it was a little tougher than we originally expected. But I think there's some things that can be improved. So it's not like we're going to discontinue it and it's gone tomorrow. But I would say for this group, this is a maturity that we expect to see some innovation coming in the short term and maybe some looks this upcoming year.
I think I'm gonna take that as a positive look through the lens. Nothing negative about that at all. We're always looking to get some things improved. So I think that's fantastic that we have things in the pipeline coming down the line. Now the third one of the original set, 6409 for you guys too. Again, this has been really good for us in some of those pockets. I don't see as much in the north as we probably do in Texas and Oklahoma. So if you guys have some placement strategies that are different than what we have on here, go ahead and throw those out. But Payne, how do you see this one fitting most operations today?
Yeah, one thing to point out is this, when we talk about sugarcane aphid tolerance, the gene that we have that confers sugarcane aphid tolerance has two mechanisms of resistance. So we have the tolerant mechanism and the antibiosis mechanism for sugarcane aphid resistance. This hybrid has the tolerant mechanism only for sugarcane. So it does have some sort of tolerance to sugarcane aphids. This product is kind of what I would call a between maturity product. It's not quite a full medium, but it also is not a medium early, so it has a lot of flex in how it works across the geographies. It can span again a long range of geographies. You can use different planting patterns with it as well. So a really consistent yielder is how I would describe this product across dry lands to irrigated acres.
Fair. Tanner, any thoughts?
I just like how tough this one is. Like if I had to compare this to the 45 product, I personally like this one better. Just travels and is a little bit tougher. So this is out of those two, I think the maturities are closer than what the tech sheets probably say. So to me, if I had to go just west of 35 one product, this would probably be my choice out of those two products.
Right on. I think that's some things that we've seen as well, that 6145 can yield pretty well, but as you get into the tougher conditions out there further south, this thing's going to take its place and do pretty well. We get into, again, I had this thing against our 6311, which is a true conventional, and 6311 just does really well in a lot of environments. But as you see, there's just a little bit of a gap there. But it's going to be a darn tough hybrid too as you get out into that tougher yield environment. So nothing to shake a stick at bad there. We're going to go forward with that thing, continue to sell it out in the country, guys. And then we have the new one coming down the pipeline, 6454 DT2. Again, I have not seen this enough times. I've got some yield results right now, but Payne and Tanner, I would love you guys to talk to what you're seeing coming out of the pipeline for this new product.
Yeah, so a really good medium maturity hybrid that's got very, very consistent yields. It can work in dry land to fully irrigated scenarios. Uh, has a DT2 trait, so you can spray earlier. Has the high sugarcane aphid resistance as well. This product is going to work really well through those western Great Plains areas, and we've had a decent amount of data to advance this product. We feel very comfortable entering this product into the market.
To me, this is the clear product that's going to move you closer to the 35 corridor better than any of the first gen DTs. So I think this is an instant upgrade. It also tillers extremely well. So on a year like this where we saw a lot of moisture come in, it tillered like you would expect medium maturities to tiller. So in terms of the yield potential along with maturity, it's going to compete better than what I would say those first gen DTs did in the really high productive dryland situations. So as we move closer to the 35 corridor, down there, even into Oklahoma, towards like Oklahoma City, Enid, those areas, this is going to be a really good product. And with that semi-open head, it still dries down pretty quickly. So we can plant it a bit later up until the 25th of June with confidence. So, but yeah, this is, in my mind, this is a clear portfolio improvement in the medium maturity class for the traded products.
Just as a supply note too, folks, we're probably going to be a little bit more limited on this product as an introductory launch versus going haywire and putting it over 90% of a guy's farm. So if you want some trials, go ahead and put those orders in. If we get into a weird spot, we can maybe do some adjustments, but we will not have all you can eat on that thing. We just need to manage our pile a little bit on the backside as well. So keep that in mind. And I did pull this data in here so you guys can see that compared to some different things that are out there today, it should be a nice improvement as we go forward in that maturity range for what's out there today. So just a quick snippet. I'll make sure everybody gets access to this information, and we'll have this full recording available for other people that want to hear it later. So those are a few things about all that. I threw this in here. This was some information that came out of Hays, Kansas, and right behind 6454, I wanted to make sure everybody could see that, yep, even out there, dry land, up in the corner, Hays, Kansas had 134 bushel, and this thing was number 5 out of 30 entries. So it has the yield potential to do really good things and hit that maturity must have been just about perfect out there this year in that medium gap, because again, 6311, 147 bushel. So it kind of fit that medium group. The weather turned out just right for that medium group this year. So it has some yield potential and looks like it's going to do pretty well. One more thing on this list, 6621. Folks, I think according to initial check information, we had this thing pushed a little bit too far, and we called it like a 66, 67 day. I'm going to back that thing down, probably more like a 64-day product. Really short stature. So it's one of those that looks fantastic for as big as it gets, and it maintains that stature pretty well. Payne, what do you have for information for placement on 6621 to get people out and get this thing on some acres as well?
Yeah, I think Tanner would probably agree, but I think in the past the S&W was not probably positioned correctly in terms of maturity and where it goes. But what I can tell you about this product is stalk strength is probably the highest that I've ever seen. I've never seen it lodge. I've even seen it go through a hurricane in South Texas and everything else was on the ground and this thing was still standing. So great stalk strength. This is also a very consistent yielder. So if you're in a favorable dryland scenario where you're making 60 to 100 bushels and you have pretty significant grass problems, this is your hybrid.
So this is going to sound silly, guys, and you don't need to just focus on this. But when people call me and they start asking questions about plant height and weed control, and I go, you're looking for something to go to a pheasant farm, aren't you? Or a preserve. And they're like, yeah, this is one of my favorite products to pheasant hunt over too because of the stature of it. It's a great grain producer, stands late for those guys that want to pheasant hunt and combine, which is not ideal. But I'm telling you what, for grass control and keeping those dang sandbirds and bristly foxtail out of my dog's hair, I'm 100% all over this guy too. Even if you get into the South Dakota market, guys, a 64 day that you can let stand out there through January to dry down, it's going to set grain. It just needs time to dry. So it'll work. And I hate to put it into the food plot category, but it's fantastic for those guys that want to bird hunt and then go combine late. So that's my ticket. Gentlemen, if you have any other wrap-up comments for DT, we're at the end of the DT section. Anybody on the phone that wants to ask some questions of these guys, please go ahead and do so. I'm going to pause for a second to let anybody or you guys have some wrap-up comments and any other questions. Nothing. Good? Tanner?
I would say to close, guys, I think with the new direction going on with Warner Seeds, I think the expansion of offerings, you're going to see a lot of new DT material out in the test plots this next year with Jeff.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of things to look at. We want to make sure that we're offering an expansive amount of options, whether it's conventional grains or DT forages. And we want to reduce the overlap that you may have run into in the past to make sure we're not cannibalizing ourselves. And so from my perspective in running the commercial business, I can kind of make that guarantees that we want to make sure we're doing right by your team, by the CROPLAN brand, and making sure that there's the opportunity to have some products that let you stand out and stand alone in terms of performance in the field. So you're going to see a lot of new products coming down the pipeline and a lot of new things that you're going to get a peek behind the curtain for. And I'm excited for this next summer. But I appreciate all of you and appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Thanks, Tanner.
Thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the call. Jeff has my contact, so if there's any questions on products, I'd be happy to help out any way possible.
Fantastic. Well, guys, you can stay on if you'd like, but thank you for your time, and we're going to continue to move on. So, all right, folks, the next tool in the toolbox, we're going to talk just quickly about the iGrowth system. So, and then we'll get into the rest of the conventional varieties quick. But again, another tool in the toolbox and gives you another opportunity to do some rotations with some other herbicide technology. Again, this is the ImiFlex type, the Imazamox product, the ImiFlex hybrid. Again, you're gonna have some broadleaf control. If you have some ALS resistance out there, you need to be conscious of all that. But again, I wanted to bring this up as another tool in the toolbox. There've been some fantastic yields, some fantastic success stories with these products on yield maintenance. So don't be afraid to take a look at the iGrowth hybrids as well. And again, yes, they have the weed label height is again going to be somewhere in that 3 to 4 inch range, so you get good control. They have the option to do pre-emerge or post-application. At one point, they talked really highly about the pre-emerge herbicide control system, but now that we've used it and had more practice in the country, they are back to talking about starting clean with your burn down, your pre-plant applications, and if they don't hold and you need some later application, then come in and use the ImiFlex with atrazine and or any other tank mix combination as needed. So they've kind of shifted the conversation at UPL back to they're seeing more benefit post application versus pre as a residual. But just understand you do have some options. You can tank mix. And the iGrowth herbicide system looks like it's doing pretty well. Again, we'll have all this information in as far as from the agronomy side, the use of adjuvants, the right crop oil concentrates, NIS, is how to do that type of stuff. So we'll include all that, and I'll send the tech sheets out when I do the recording a link for this call today. So 6367 IG is the earliest variety we have today, 63 days to mid-bloom. Again, it's a beautiful red grain. This product does very well. Probably has better potential. So we all know that grain sorghums are very drought tolerant, but if you get into the worst of the worst acres, this is going to go from the average acre to the better acre most likely and give you that yield punch on the top side. There is a new variety in the industry that will be a touch earlier than this. We have chosen to watch it, get some more yield data, and see what happens for 2027, but we will not offer the earlier hybrid for 2026. Just so you know, if you start seeing some scuttle in the industry about an earlier high growth product, I put that on the burner for the moment just to make sure that it was as good as it's supposed to be. So we're looking at yield data there. But again, if you have some sugarcane aphid concerns, this one is not the best for sugarcane aphids. It does not have an aphid rating. So it's basically considered susceptible because it doesn't have enough tolerance to be an Afix branded product. So let me know. We have supply loaded on this thing. We can always grab some more supply. We should be good there. But if things start to get tight, let me know. I do have a few units of this for anybody that might have an off situation where we have a little bit of a lower germ scenario. So if you've got some of those guys that will take advantage of that with some price reduction, let me know. We have some low germ material to get rid of as well. So the iGrowth 6367, pretty good product. Everybody's had some good success. Start seeing some yield results where this thing usually fits average to above average as far as yield. So very consistent, and that's kind of what we were looking for. 6664 is going to have just a touch more heat and stress tolerance, and it has sugarcane aphid tolerance as well. So as you start looking at some of those pieces, 6664, very good dryland product. Again, beautiful red grain, 64 days roughly to mid bloom. Been working pretty well for us. So on those acres, folks, go ahead and get after that thing. We've got a little bit of regression information from one of the breeders. Now, this information is comparing that variety towards some of the DT hybrids, so take that with a grain of salt. But 6664 has a very good yield potential, if you will, compared to some of the DT hybrids in this information that we've gotten from the breeders. So if you're having some luck and you need to have a 1-2 combination rotation between the two herbicide chemistries, gives us a great opportunity to rotate herbicides and not just go have an issue with herbicide tolerance as well. It helps us break that all up. All right. That was just, I know we spent a lot of time on DT, but those guys were available. They were on the call. I had an iGrowth call the other day with the gentleman internally to talk about that program. But now on to the rest of the varieties quick here. So 5302E, we put an E on there for early. I'm not sure why I did that. I don't want anybody to get confused about enlist or anything like that, but it is E for early. 5302 is the earliest variety we have today in our lineup, 53 days. This thing is tough, guys. Where you get into the nasty pivot corner, tough, absolutely crappy dryland scenario, and you need something early to finish and give you a reasonable yield potential, that's where this guy fits. Or double cropped, or as far north we get into North Dakota, some of those South Dakota acres, 5302 has looked very, very good for a 53-day. The yield potential on this yield for maturity is really good. So hot, stressed acre, double crop, that's the way to go. Anybody have any feedback on that guy from last year? Not so much. Don't remember. Okay. 5811, folks.
Jeff,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was texting a customer, but that early season product, I just took a plot out in eastern Colorado, and everything was really, really dry, and this thing stood like a champ. It was
Yep.
it was yielding right with some of those 58 and 61 day products. This thing isn't anything to be scared about, even if you're concerned about the early maturity.
Yeah. That's kind of what we've gathered from most people as well. The standability on it's really good. And yeah, the yield for maturity on it's fantastic. And I'll tell you guys too that we talked to a lot of different breeders, and I've had some breeders say, "Hey, are you interested in a really early one, an ultra early?" And you go, "Well, we've got this 5302," and they go, "Oh yeah, okay. Never mind. That's the good one. Go ahead. Continue on." So it's nice to have some of those kind of comments from people in the industry too, where you go, "Okay, yeah, that's good. We got the good one. That's pretty cool." 5811, folks, one of our first early introductions, again, has been just really tough, scrappy on the early side. I've seen really good standability out of this thing as one of those workhorses with some stable yield, where you get into those really crappy. Again, this is that pivot corner type guy on the early side. And I put in the bottom here, if you have people that have been in the Sorghum Partners camp and they're looking for this 43M80 type material, I analyzed a bunch of information out of some universities and some breeder trial data that would tell me that if you're going to be on the worst tough crappy acre, 5811 will probably yield better than 43M80. When you start getting on the average soil types and a little bit better in an early category, then we compare with our 6111A and have that higher end yield potential out of it. So I would say, as a companion product with 6111, we can work around the Sorghum Partners 43M80 because, as we know, Sorghum Partners isn't around today, but Tanner and team have those varieties available yet. I would use this as a 1-2 punch with 5811, 6111, right around 43M80 and mix it up just a little bit and do our job as we talk about the right product on the right acre and fix those scenarios that way. So 5921, there are a few bags left. We're going to retire that product. That was our earlier cream. We just simply didn't move enough volume with that product. It's done very well for us, and I don't say that we really have any complaints about it. But from a volume standpoint in our lineup today, we need to make some decisions and make sure that we're keeping the SKU numbers manageable. So this one's going to retire. If you need a few bags, there's a few left online right now, but we will not be refilling that supply. So use it wisely. And thank you, 5921, for a good run. One of our original varieties when we started 4 years ago. 6011, again, will be another SKU management piece. We'll sell some this year. No returns in 2026 on 6011, but we just don't, again, we don't move enough volume in that pocket. This is one of those varieties that does very well. And I would call it a workhorse style variety that has racehorse type yields when it gets handled correctly. Been very, very good to us. It's been around since we started the program a number of years ago, but the adaptation and the movement across without having sugarcane aphid tolerance has held this one back a bit. So it will be retired as well, just as a footnote. So use it where you want to. 2026, no returns. 27, we're moving on. 6111A was a new introduction for us last year. Again, it's been very tough. One of those red grain colored early varieties that is a very good companion product, again, with the earlier 5811. And if you get into that early to medium early category and you need the companion with 6311 on an earlier acre, it makes a very, very good piece to pair on some acres on those farms, so you're not all in one bucket all the time and you play the agronomic game. Again, I put a note in here, if you're fighting in that area where you have, or in the area where you would have 43M80 acres, this could be a really good companion to hit on the average to better acre that they might place that on as an early product. So a couple tools to utilize that in the market to get after some of those acres and see what we can do. But again, it's been very tough. Yields on it have been very good, not falling apart anywhere. Standability seemed to be pretty good this year, and we've seen it on some acres too that had straight line winds and it stood perfectly fine. Anybody have any comments on the first couple products as we go along, or are we doing pretty good?
I think we're doing pretty good. This has much better standability than our 6011, our previous product.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
probably a little
6011
better
would
yield.
6011 would be one of those that could cannibalize that stock and go down. Yep. Very good. And supply, we should be in good shape on this one as well. 5811 will have good supply. The other two we're going to retire. So that's a little bit of that story quick. Regression lines, again, this shows us basically in the toughest, worst of environments, 5811 is probably going to handle that the best down in that 2,000 to 3,000 pound range. But then once we start improving the yield environment and get the days to grow it, and we get up into that 150, 160 bushel yield range, 6111 should be able to take advantage of that and just continue to improve that pile. So good yield potential as we start getting above that 80 bushel range, then you can 6111 should handle it better. And then again, compared to the 6011, 6011 can have some really good high-end yield potential, Tom, but it's hard to get picked up once in a while, and we're just not moving as much. So we're going to transition out of that product. Toss this one in here again too. This is some Nebraska Winfield answer plot data. So 6111 was, 58.8 bushel. There's not much yield parity in this whole plot. If you start looking at the LSD at 7 bushel, and basically, excuse me, that's test weight over here. What the heck am I thinking? Test weight threw me off being the last column for some reason. This is it. This is a little bit right where it might hit a sweet spot on the right year. Syracuse, Nebraska is going to be a pretty good yield environment. But again, as we talked about some of the DT stuff, 6145 actually won that trial in Nebraska under a conventional herbicide management system. So that was the absence of weeds, and it yielded that well. 6311, you'll see that coming up in just a moment, was number 2, basically significantly not different at all statistically. 6111 did pretty well in there. Again, I kind of sprinkled this in so you could see some of these yield results on that piece of ground, but all in all, we've got some great products out there for you guys to use. Puckwana, South Dakota, some answer plot data again, 6111, 123 bushel there. You'll see a product in here that we're looking at as an experimental. I back up once. I called that 61C. Gonna hit that early range as well as a 61 day, but something to look at going down the pipeline as maybe a new improvement coming. So folks, there's always this information to look at. Take it with a grain of salt. Dryland Puckwana, South Dakota trial. This will all come along with the information shortly. 6311, this was Haven, Kansas. I suspect that Haven, Kansas might have had some bird damage in it because we didn't have a lot of grain sorghum in that area, and our demos got picked fairly well. So this is the information from the replicated yield trial. Again, we're going to ride the horse on 6311. That 61C is in there, 6145. I think that's why I put this trial data right here, is to show that some of these earlies still are yielding very well in what we would call more of a medium type market. So great yielders, positioned on the farm where they need to be. We're going to be in great shape. So we got some third-party data out of Texas, and I wanted to show you this as well. I broke it out by maturity group. We tested everything in our portfolio all in one big test. So I broke this out to show you just the early and medium early varieties to make it a little bit more fair and realistic. But folks, the yield average on this irrigated plot in Texas was 173 bushel. And you can see again, as Tom mentioned earlier, we talked about 6011 yields very well, but then we have standability and late season issues on it. But again, these early group of varieties doing very well, 150 to 165 bushel. So nothing to sneeze at. Again, placed in the ideal environment. So that's going to show the racehorse yields right there. We get out on some dryland acre, that script flips pretty quickly. 6211 will be retired. No returns in 26. Very, very good product. Very good, tough, medium early dryland product. And we've seen this for a number of years. Has the DW3 gene to control that mutation and keep everything looking more of a uniform stature in that field and kind of the same height. It's worked really well for us. We talked last year about replacing it with 6311. That's going to be our go-to product going forward. So 6211 will be value priced this year. There's a little price reduction on that so we can manage our inventory and move through that. Again, no returns in 2026. So you guys have understood and learned how to use that one quite well. And we compare it to 6111. Yeah, 6211 is going to have a little bit better yield punch as the yield environment gets better. 6111A is going to have a little bit of an advantage in the worst of the worst type scenarios down in that low yield environment. 6311, new product, excellent charcoal rot tolerance, has performed very, very good in every trial that I've seen it in this last couple of years. Very consistent. Again, stable DW3 gene, going to be very stable in height, reduce those mutations across that acre. Beautiful uniform crop. Awesome bronze color, kind of that semi-open head type, dries down really well, and fantastic sugarcane aphid tolerance as well. So let's be looking at that thing in that medium to medium early group. It's been working very, very well for us, and we should not have a supply issue on that one as well. A little bit of a regression analysis. And if you look at this chart, 6211 might have a little benefit down in the worst acres, 2,000 to 3,000 pound range. But once you get outside of that, 6311 just has an extra yield punch and top end to continue to go and give you the best yield of those two as a comparison. So that's why we transitioned from 6211 to 63. Again, this is a Haven, Kansas trial with this maturity group. And you can see in here, folks, 6311, again, 92 bushel. This 5407 kind of has its own LSD bracket, it looks like. But you start comparing the 6311 to the rest of them in here. Fantastic yielder. Again, I question maybe a little bit of bird damage, but again, 6311 has been a great product for us to go forward with. Irrigated, darn it, I forgot to put the location on this one. This, I think, is Garden City irrigated. Garden City, Kansas answer plot. You'll see on top here there's a 70A. We'll talk about that towards the end of the slides, but we have a replacement that's coming down the pipeline. This is actually a look 2 years ahead to see what's coming. But I felt I'd just keep that in here so you could see it today. 6311, really good yield potential in there. Again, Garden City irrigated. And this is that third-party data out of Texas. Again, I pulled out just the medium early varieties for you all to look at. 6311 actually was the best yielding product in that group. And you consider, was it 16 bushel better than the Pioneer check that's in there? That's a fantastic day for us as a brand. So again, 6311 in that medium early group is just a fantastic product. 6811, we had that. This is a racehorse type product. Show pony, needs the groceries, needs water, will yield like nobody's business, but will be the first one to maybe need cleaned up off the ground as well. So if we can get through a little bit of that this year, or we have a place for it, let's do that. We're going to retire this variety. No returns in 26. But as far as somebody that wants to go win and contest with the National Sorghum Growers Contest and we'll get it combined on time, 6811 is a fantastic product in that medium group. So if anybody has anybody, we want to go do that, that's where that thing is meant to go. Show pony, take care of it, combine it early, not going to be the last one you take out of the field. 7011 we've had around for a number of years, folks. Great product for us. Going to fit that medium to medium late type maturity. 69 to 70 days. Going to be fuller season for a lot of us. Again, very good drought tolerance. We go after these good, stable. Just don't ignore this thing. If you've got guys that are wanting to push things, you get into southern Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, it's going to be a great product for you guys. We have a little bit of a limit on how much 7011 is available today, partly due to the fact that we are going to transition to a new product that we call 7021. It'll be a direct replacement for 7011A, has just a touch better yield potential, and it's about supply. We have a supply we can go run with 7021 this year, so if you really like 7011, we're going to use 7021 as a replacement. There'll be a little bit of 7011 available to go out. Now, as you read through these notes, this is going to be a great product to replace 7011 in 2026. 7021 has basically a 1-year life, unless there's some carryover, but we have the replacement picked for it already. It's just all about getting production caught up so we can actually introduce the next new product. So I don't want to diminish the utility of this product because it's as good or better than 7011, but we already have its successor named for 2027. So keep your eye on some of these things. Fantastic yielding product, great response to management. Going to be a fantastic piece in that medium to medium late group. 6311 in this group, even down there in Texas, was the highest yielding variety, 197 bushel. This 6911 that will be in 2027 was pushing it at 196. You know, guys, some of this can all be sampling error. So 7011, great variety. We're continuing to ratchet that thing up. So just a quick look at what some of those varieties did. Irrigated, Dumas, Texas, Sunray area. Great set of information. A little note about what we did for sales last year. We sold about 13,000 bags, and we were about 44% of it carried a trait, whether that was double team or the iGrowth scenario. So thank you all for doing that. We're getting down here to the end. I'm going to just, anybody that wants to stick around and ask some questions or have any comments, feel free to. Thank you so much for your time today. I think I had I knew we were not going to be done in an hour, so I think I had it scheduled for a full 2 hours or hour and a half. But again, thank you all for your participation, your attention. I'm glad to see that there's still nearly 30 people hanging on here to hear what's going on, what we have in the pipeline. If you have comments, questions, it's open for you. You can send me personal messages later. That'd be fantastic. I'd love to hear what you guys have going on. And again, I'm going to challenge anybody that's in those pockets where we have sorghum partners material from prior sales experiences. We should be positioned today with our grain sorghum and forages to help alleviate the pressure that gap might leave in the country. Now, Sorghum Partners brand is not gone today, but I do think the writing's on the wall that we have an opportunity to go help put some Winfield or Cropland grain sorghum on those acres today, and we should be looking at those opportunities. Not to pick on anybody particularly, but that might be a good spot for us to go looking today. Comments, thoughts, anybody? There was not one message in the chat box. That's crazy. Go sell grain sorghum. Let's take Milo to the next step with Winfield and Cropland brand. Hopefully things go well. There'll be an email at some point once this recording is fixed up. I'll give you the link. another set of text sheets. I was attached a link to this presentation today, so you guys have some of that data. Have fun. Make me proud. Thanks, Curtis. I can see your face there. So you're one of my guys on my toolbar. There, I'll open it up so I can see more of you.
Jeff,
Jonathan Folsom, thanks for getting some of that data for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've never felt better about our cropland grain sorghum lineup. I think it's the best that it's ever been. We've got some fantastic varieties, and it's safe. I think that's the best thing that people need to remember is we've got good, safe choices. It's not just all about yield. So good, solid yield, solid standability, stress tolerance, disease tolerance, lots of great stuff.
I want to do a couple shout outs, and Jonathan, you're one of them. Thank you so much for walking trials with us and for us, pulling some of that data together. It's fantastic to have another set of eyes and ears out there. I see Melissa News on this call yet today. Melissa, thank you for helping us. So if you all didn't know, she is the one that she's my gatekeeper on the backside of this whole sorghum business that keeps things running and helps with production planning and bags and tags and all that stuff. So Melissa, thank you for all the time and dedication you put in, because I know there's days where I see your green lights on way too late and you send me messages when you shouldn't be. So I appreciate that. Everybody else, you know the gig. We love you. Now let's go get some shit done.
Hey, Jeff, there was some chats that came in late.
Here we go. How has seed purity been? Well, I would tell you that I would lie if I said I didn't have any phone calls. Do I have a plethora of phone calls? No. Is it isolated? I would say yes. Hasn't been a big enough issue that we need to address anything, but I haven't seen. If we've been fighting Shattercane and several DeKalb hybrids, that's a little concerning. We have some stuff that comes there too, so we'll keep an eye on it. How about you guys? Have you seen anything, anybody on this call today, where you have seed purity issues that you'd like to express? I mean, it's probably not the best platform to do it, but what the hell? Go for it. Not really. I think the big thing for us is we took some of those herbicide tolerant trait pieces and ran them through the cleaner after we received them and really helped ourselves out from chunks and cleanliness and better germ and all those other good things. So we're trying to take some steps to do a little better. For anybody that's on the call right now, I'm going to tell you that we're going to try to have a complete, I'm going to call it a changeover for 2027. We're going to try to switch the whole lineup from Concept Cruiser to Soar Pro and Senator, which would be comparable products from a different distribution channel. And so that's going to be a little bit clunky for a year with some supply of both seed treatments. But just so you know, there's probably something coming. We're still looking at some things with Ascend ST3. Really excited about some of those pieces. That's coming. Thanks, guys and gals. Have a great week. I'm going to stop my recording, stop my share, and you all have a great day.